How do we make sure those home inspectors are really the best they can be? We've got this proposal that could completely change how these crucial professionals are actually educated.
Absolutely.
We're looking at a document from a seasoned inspector, Gary Smith. Over 50 years of experience in the field, and he's arguing the current system for training inspectors needs a serious revamp.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that right now becoming a home inspector can be a bit like the Wild West. There's no real standardized path. Some folks come from construction backgrounds, others have, technical expertise, and some are diving in with like no prior experience at all. It's a real mixed bag, and that could be a real problem for you as the home buyer.
He even calls the current system loosely structured. He compares it to like herding cats. Honestly, is a pretty hilarious image, but it also highlights a pretty serious issue. How can you as a buyer be sure the person inspecting your future home has the knowledge they need to protect your investment?
That's the core of the problem. If we're being honest, the quality of inspector education can vary wildly. You might get someone who is incredibly knowledgeable and skilled, or you might end up with someone who just barely scraped by their certification. And unfortunately, as a homeowner, it's hard to tell the difference until it's too late.
Okay, so we've established there's a need for better, more consistent training. But how do we actually fix it? That's where Gary Smith's proposal comes in. He's calling for a flexible, practical education framework. And the key word here is definitely flexible.
Yeah, the old way of thinking was basically, here's the information, memorize it, pass the test, good luck out there. But Gary argues that a one-size-fits-all approach simply doesn't work for home inspector training. And it makes sense if you think about it. Just like every home is unique, every inspector brings their own set of strengths and weaknesses to the table.
I can absolutely see that. Have you ever taken a course where you just felt like you were wasting time on material you already knew? Gary uses this example of an experienced HVAC technician being forced to sit through a basic refrigeration class as part of their inspector training. Talk about a waste of everyone's time.
Exactly. And on the other hand, someone with zero construction experience shouldn't be thrown into the deep end with complex building science concepts without first understanding the basics. We need a system that caters to individual needs, allowing inspectors to build on their existing knowledge and focus on areas where they need to improve.
Okay, I'm starting to see the logic here.
Yeah.
So how does Gary propose we make this flexible framework a reality? Where do we even start?
Well, Gary's looked at a lot of different models, and he's particularly interested in how the International Code Council does things. They use an open book testing approach for their certifications, which really emphasizes practical knowledge and problem-solving skills. Think of it like this. A good home inspector isn't just a walking encyclopedia of building codes. They need to know how to find the right information, interpret it, and apply it to a real-world situation.
It's kind of like being a detective, right?
Exactly.
You need to know where to look for clues and how to put the pieces together. And you're not memorizing every detail of every case you've ever worked on. You just know how to access the information you need when you need it.
Precisely. And that's exactly what Gary wants to see in home inspector training. Less rote memorization, more practical application. He's laid out a framework with 6 key pillars, and I think you'll find them quite interesting.
All right, let's get into those pillars. The first one is smart entry assessment. Gary's pretty adamant about making sure that an inspector's existing knowledge and experience are assessed before they even start training.
It's about efficiency and personalization. Why waste time teaching someone what they already know? This assessment allows for a much more targeted learning experience focusing on individual needs and areas where there are knowledge gaps.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, we're creating like a personalized learning path for each inspector. I can definitely see the value in that. And that ties directly into the second pillar, flexible learning paths, right?
Exactly. Gary envisions different learning tracks to cater to the diverse backgrounds and experience levels of aspiring inspectors. There's a fast track for experienced pros who just need to brush up on specific areas. Then there's a standard track for those who need a more comprehensive education. And finally, a custom track for individuals who might have strengths in some areas but need more in-depth training in others.
It's almost like choosing your own adventure in home inspection education. So no matter where you're starting from, there's a path that can help you reach your goals.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Okay, on to pillar number 3, practical focus areas.
This is where Gary emphasizes that inspector education shouldn't just be about theory. It needs to be grounded in real-world scenarios and applications. He wants to see training that truly prepares inspectors for the challenges they'll face on the job. Think about it from a homeowner's perspective. You want an inspector who can not only identify potential issues, but also explain them to you in a way that's understandable and actionable.
And to do that, they need more than just textbook knowledge. They need practical experience, hands-on training, and the ability to really connect the dots between theory and real-world application.
Exactly. It's about bridging that gap between knowing the building code and understanding how it actually plays out in a real home.
So are you saying that even complex scientific principles can be made relevant and engaging for everyday inspections? I'm thinking about things like the stack effect, which honestly sounds a bit intimidating.
Right. Even something like the stack effect can be made relatable if you explain it in a practical way. It's all about how air moves through a building due to temperature differences. Warm air rises, creating pressure that can pull in moist air from outside or suck conditioned air out.
So it's kind of like an invisible chimney that can impact everything from energy efficiency to moisture problems.
Exactly. And understanding this concept can help an inspector identify potential issues that a less experienced inspector might miss. And just as importantly, they can explain it to you in a way that helps you understand what's going on in your home.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. It's not just about knowing the jargon, it's about understanding how that knowledge translates into real-world insights and advice.
And that brings us to the fourth pillar, real world application. This is where things get really hands on. Gary talks about using case studies from actual inspections, showing examples of photo documentation, creating problem solving scenarios.
It sounds like a home inspector boot camp.
Yeah. It is a bit like boot camp in a good way, of course. It's about giving inspectors the tools and experience they need to really tackle those real world situations. Think about it. You wouldn't want a surgeon operating on you if all they'd done was read about surgery in textbooks, would you?
No way. Give me someone who's practiced their skills and knows how to
Yeah.
handle those, unexpected situations. So with this real-world application pillar, it's about taking all that theoretical knowledge and turning it into actionable skills.
I like it. Okay, what's next on Gary's list?
Pillar number 5 is all about preparation for national testing. Now, it's important to note that passing a national exam is a crucial step for many inspectors, and Gary isn't discounting that. But he argues that the focus shouldn't be on, teaching to the test. Instead, the training itself should naturally prepare inspectors for these exams by building a solid foundation of knowledge and critical thinking. So it's not about memorizing a bunch of facts and figures just to pass an exam. It's about developing like a deep understanding of the concepts and being able to apply that knowledge in real-world scenarios, which honestly sounds like a much better way to learn anything, not just home inspection.
I agree. It's about understanding the why behind the what, not just checking boxes. And that leads us to the final pillar of Gary's framework. Flexibility is key. This one really speaks to the individualized approach we've been talking about.
So how does flexibility play a role in creating a better system for home inspector education?
Well, it's about recognizing that everyone comes to this profession with different backgrounds, strengths, and areas where they need to grow. A rigid one-size-fits-all system just doesn't cut it. Gary even admits that he's stronger in certain areas than others. A good educational system should allow inspectors to focus on their individual needs, whether they're a seasoned pro or just starting out.
So an experienced electrician might not need to spend a ton of time on electrical systems, but they might benefit from more in-depth training on plumbing or roofing. It's about tailoring the learning experience to the individual.
Exactly. It's about recognizing and valuing those individual strengths that each inspector brings to the table. And that's something homeowners should be aware of as well. You want an inspector who's not only qualified, but also well suited to the specific needs of your home.
That's a really interesting point. I think most people just assume all home inspectors are basically the same, but clearly that's not the case. So if we're thinking about Gary's framework, it's not just about raising the bar for the entire profession. It's also about empowering individual inspectors to be the best they can be.
Precisely. It's about creating a system that benefits everyone, inspectors, homeowners, and the entire housing industry. And that's really Gary's ultimate vision, to create a system where everyone wins.
Okay, so we've got this fantastic framework, this blueprint for a better way to train home inspectors. But how do we actually make it happen? How does Gary see this being implemented in the real world?
Well, he's laid out a very clear step-by-step plan. It all starts with that initial SMART entry assessment we talked about. Figure out what the inspector already knows, what their experience is, and what areas they need to focus on.
Kind of like a personalized roadmap for their education, right?
Exactly. From there, a customized learning plan is developed. It would include core requirements, flexible modules that allow for specialization, and of course, plenty of hands-on components and testing opportunities.
So it's not just about sitting in a classroom listening to lectures. It's about actively engaging with the material and building those critical problem-solving skills.
Precisely. And throughout the entire process, there would be ongoing validation, module completion checks, practical demonstrations, knowledge application exercises, and final assessments. It's about demonstrating competency at every step of the way, not just at the very end.
So it's like building in quality control from the ground up. You're not just assuming that someone is competent because they passed a test. You're verifying their skills and knowledge at every stage of the training process.
That's a great way to put it. It's about ensuring that when you hire a home inspector, you can have confidence that they've been through a rigorous and comprehensive training program.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So this framework benefits individual inspectors by providing them with a clear path to success. And it benefits homeowners by ensuring that the person inspecting their home is truly qualified and competent. But you mentioned earlier that it benefits the entire housing industry as well. How so?
Think about it this way. When inspectors are better trained and more knowledgeable, it raises the overall standard of professionalism in the industry. It creates a more level playing field, and that benefits everyone involved in the home buying and selling process.
It's like raising the tide for all boats, right?
Mhm.
Everyone benefits from a higher level of quality and accountability.
Exactly. And that's a big part of what Gary is advocating for. He wants to empower consumers to demand this higher level of professionalism from home inspectors. It's about making informed choices and expecting the best possible service.
I love that. It's not just about waiting for the industry to change. It's about consumers driving that change by demanding better training and higher standards.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power, and when homeowners are more informed, everyone benefits.
Absolutely. And that shift in power dynamics is crucial. It moves us away from a buyer beware mentality to a more collaborative and transparent approach to home inspections.
So Gary's proposal isn't just about tweaking the existing system. It's about fundamentally rethinking how we approach home inspector education and ultimately how we approach home inspections themselves.
It's a bold vision, but it's one that's desperately needed. The current system is fragmented and inconsistent and often fails to meet the needs of both inspectors and homeowners. We need a system that recognizes the unique challenges of this profession and empowers inspectors to truly excel.
And Gary's framework offers a practical and compelling way forward. It's not just a theory, it's a blueprint for action. So as we've been unpacking Gary's proposal, we've really been uncovering something bigger, haven't we? It's not just about checking boxes and meeting minimum requirements. It's about investing in the future of the profession and ensuring that homeowners are getting the best possible service.
It's about recognizing that every home inspection is a unique and individual process. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to evaluating a home.
That's such a crucial point. And it ties back to everything we've been discussing about individualization and flexibility in training. Just like every inspector brings their own set of strengths and weaknesses to the table, every home has its own quirks and complexity.
Exactly. Every house has a story to tell, a unique set of challenges and opportunities. A good inspector understands that and tailors their approach accordingly.
It's like a fingerprint. No two inspections are exactly alike.
And that's why Gary emphasizes the need for inspectors to be able to think critically, adapt to different situations, and communicate effectively with their clients. It's not enough to simply point out problems. A good inspector explains what those problems mean for you, the homeowner, both now and in the future.
Because at the end of the day, a home inspection isn't just about identifying potential issues, right? It's about providing homeowners with the information they need to make informed decisions about their biggest investment. It's about empowering them to understand their homes and make choices that are right for their individual needs and circumstances. It strikes me that this whole conversation has really been about kind of shifting that power dynamic, moving away from the idea that a home inspection is just a formality, a box to check on your way to closing.
Right.
Instead, we're talking about a process that can truly empower homeowners to make smart, informed decisions.
It's about recognizing that a home inspection is an investment in your peace of mind. It's about getting a really clear understanding of the property you're considering so you can go into the buying process with your eyes wide open.
Yeah, this deep dive has been so eye-opening. We started by talking about, Gary Smith's proposal for revamping home inspector education, but we've really uncovered this much broader conversation about the importance of individualization and expertise in this field.
And what's really fascinating to me is how Gary emphasizes the human element of all of this. Yes, inspectors need a solid understanding of building science and construction techniques, but they also need to be excellent communicators. They need to be able to translate those complex concepts into plain language that homeowners can understand.
It's like they're bridging the gap between that technical world of building codes and the very personal experience of buying a home.
That's a great way to put it. A good inspector isn't just rattling off a list of defects, they're explaining what those issues mean for you, the homeowner, both in the short term and down the road.
They're helping you understand the risks, the potential costs involved, and the best course of action to address those concerns. They're like your guide through the often confusing world of home maintenance and repair.
And that's where the real value of a good inspector lies. They're not just ticking boxes, they're providing you with valuable insights and empowering you to make informed decisions about your biggest investment.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with something to really think about. Knowing what you now know about the importance of, individualized inspections, what would you ask a potential inspector before hiring them? What questions would reveal their depth of knowledge and experience? What would be your top priorities?
Those are excellent questions for any homeowner to consider. For me, it would be crucial to understand how the inspector plans to tailor the inspection to MY-specific concerns.
Hmm.
Like if I'm worried about energy efficiency, for example, I want to know that the inspector will pay particular attention to insulation windows and the HVAC system.
Yeah, I love that. It's not just about finding an inspector who's generally qualified. It's
Yeah.
about finding an inspector who's like the right fit for your unique needs and priorities. And
Mhm.
that, I think, is the key takeaway from this entire deep dive.
It's about understanding that a home inspection is more than just a formality. It's a crucial step in the home buying process that can empower you to make smart choices and ensure that your dream home truly lives up to its promise.
So as you embark on your own home buying journey, remember the insights we've uncovered today. Ask questions, do your research, and find an inspector who you trust to guide you through this complex process. Your future home will thank you for it.